Greetings, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. Today's wonderful guest is Elizabeth Makepeace. She is a spiritual mentor, and we've decided to discuss synchronicities today and how that can be a very healing experience for someone. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Hey, Tina. So nice to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do and what kind of clients you work with.
So I'm a coach and mentor. I work I'm an intuitive empath, basically. So what I do is a process called recoding. My business is the Ascendance Code. So what I do is I support mainly women, but I also work with men on the odd occasion to have conscious relationships, especially after things like narcissistic abuse or neglectful emotional relationships, and to really attract their divine partner, their soulmate, the people that they actually have contracts to experience love and support and connection with. And I do that by clearing all of the old traumas, but also the conditioning from childhood, generational history that might be weighing them down, that they're holding on to from, that's in their bloodline still, and past lives and multidimensional, wherever it's coming from. That's weighing you down. It just feels really heavy and you feel tethered to the ground. We clear all of that from the origin of where it came from, and then you just have this lightness. And now you're just working with your own soul's contract.
So how do you identify the cause of an illness or a challenge?
So generally just intuitively, like picking it up. What I do is I support people with the secrets of alchemy. So what we do is we look at what we do want to create, instead of, like, that's a big thing in itself, because a lot of people are creating from lack rather than from their true orientation, from what they really want to create in their life. We often are coming from a place of, I feel broken, so I want to fix myself. I feel alone, so I want love. I feel, sick, so I want health. And so when you're creating from lack, you are distorting the frequency. When you're creating for the universe, there's a distortion in the field. So first of all, we work out what is it your true essence wants to experience here, so that you've got a clear focus and you're just choosing to create just for the hell of it, right? Just because you want to. And so there's nothing tethered to it. There's no like ties or anything. When we work from that level, the things that are getting in the way sort of bubble up, and they're in the client's field. So they're in the field, and I just tap in and start, giving commands, and it just sort of comes up as I'm working that, this is a generational past life. Generational history, for example. It's in the bloodline.
That's so interesting. So I had a client today, and she has some mental illnesses diagnosed, and we talked a lot about the spiritual soul level side of this, which a lot she didn't know. And I just know a lot because I have a cousin diagnosed with schizophrenia. I have a really good friend diagnosed with bipolarism. So, and then I have clients that have some of these diagnoses. So when you get a client, I try to learn everything I can to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I was working on her on the Reiki table, and I was looking for, honestly, like attachments, or what you're looking for is like energy in the field that's not supposed to be there. Let's just say that. Okay. It's not supposed to be there. And I'm really not getting anything until I got a picture in my head, and I don't know where this comes from. I don't know if Angel sent it to me, I'm reading her memory, or this is my intuition. Who knows? Like I just get the picture. And I saw her as a little girl in the bedroom, and I saw a little shadow person in the corner. And I said, aha, I found you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's very interesting, isn't it, when you tap into the field, the type of information that you can get. Yeah, I've had similar experiences, like, and really it's all about being in your innocence, because when you're innocent and you're sitting in that place of no judgment or no expectation, you're not defining something a particular way, you're just observing the field, then these, this accuracy can come in, right? It's like that process comes in, and you then just sort of interpret the image.
yeah. And so I've shared that with her, and she started crying. And I said, do you remember just being a child, maybe uncomfortable in your room? She says, I don't know, but I know, there was something there bothering me. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the synchronicity, and let's define what that is and why should anybody care? Because you should, because this is really good, fun, magical stuff. But we'll explain what it is and, why we should care about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the fun aspect of being spiritual and using magic or playing in the field, isn't it? Because so synchronicity, a lot of people consider it, when you haven't got a spiritual awareness, people go, oh, that was a coincidence, right? I just happened to look at the time and it was 11:11, for example. But synchronicities, when you are open to the fact that we are spiritual beings, that we are more than our body, that we're here having a journey and we're on a path and we've got a mission, it's really connecting in with our, what I call the superconscious, right? That field of all possibilities and all knowing that's limitless compared to our little self. So when you're holding that vision, for example, you've got a vision of, meeting the love of your life in a fairy tale experience, which is what happened to me. I've shared that with you before, right? I had this beautiful experience of meeting Tim at the beach. I went down the beach. I was the only one there, and I thought, and this guy walks past, and I wave at him. I was on my phone doing a Facebook Live, and he came back. And so he comes back, we start talking, all the things, only to discover that he lived in an adjacent street. We both love sunsets and sunrises. And, he took me to see waterfalls in my area that I didn't know about. Well, my maiden name was Payne, Payne. And I was a massage therapist. Like, what are the odds of that, right? I was a massage therapist. My maiden name was Payne, and his last name is Makepeace. So I've gone from Payne to Makepeace, right? Now, people go, well, that's a coincidence. But when you're in alignment with what it is that you want to create, you just open up the field, like you were just saying when you did the Reiki session. And you get nudges, you get little inspired ideas, or, this, I might just go down the beach before I have dinner, right? Or I might just turn left instead of right. And these things happen where you start getting signs from the universe that are synchronistic experiences that you can go, yes, there's something in that. And I call it, one of the things that I do is help people unplug from the matrix, right? So unplug from the illusion that we're small and limited and broken. And so my business is sort of based in the theme of Alice in Wonderland, where, Alice is the journeyer through my business, and people sort of, follow what she's doing, but she's multidimensional. So I've got this thing called Follow the White Rabbit, which is following those threads of energy to support you to move towards your vision, your dream, because your soul is just putting these little cookies in front of you and you're just following them.
Yeah, so I imagine that there is a creator of this universe. And I mean, he is an amazing being, and that we are all part of. And that when you decide to communicate with the universe or the creator, it communicates back to you.
Yes.
And it's even trying to communicate to you when you have no clue how to communicate back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in shamanism, nature's very important, and animals are very important. So I'm always, even if I'm inside the house and I hear an animal, for example, during a Reiki session, I heard a crow the other day, and I write down crow, and then I go take my animal spirit guides book out and look up crow.
Yes.
Or sometimes I'm having a conversation with someone and I hear a sound. It could be man-made. It could be like a siren or like garbage day. It always makes me laugh when I do Reiki on garbage day, because I'm just, the garbage truck's out there flushing out the energy with the Reiki. Get it?
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, the universe has a sense of humor. And if you want to communicate, it will communicate back with you. And the more you pay attention to these little messages and signs, the more messages and signs you're going to get. And that's when it starts getting really interesting.
Super exciting, because now, one, you don't feel alone, right? Like, and there's this playful, fun energy that happens, like a lot of people love the synchronicities of triple numbers and seeing certain, car colors and all of those things, but you up it to that next level. When I decided to do that Alice in Wonderland theme, and I recognized that, teaching my clients about how to follow energy was following the white rabbit. Like, it was 2 days later, we wake up maybe 5:30 in the morning. And generally our daily routine is that my partner, Tim, is in the kitchen and he gets our morning, drink and all that sort of stuff. For whatever reason, this day he had to create an invoice before he went to work. So he was on the computer and I did that. So I'm in the kitchen making up our, lemon water and all the things. And all of a sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, and I live right at the beach in a suburb, a normal street, that you look across the road and there's houses. And 5:30 in the morning, here is this friggin' hare in the middle of the road, like right at the beach. It was just after I decided to do Follow the White Rabbit. Now, I called Tim and said, be really careful, I want you to take a photo. So this hare had stopped and looked at me, and we just stood there and looked at each other for several seconds. Tim took the photo and the hare saw him and off it went. And we've never seen it before, never saw it since. So, coincidences or synchronicities, like, these are the way this communication happens, right? That's a confirmation that I'm on the right path with my business.
Yeah, and animals are very big messengers, especially birds. I think birds are in it, but like any kind of unusual animal behavior or sighting, or you just happen to see that animal that day. So there's a message in that. And I always look it up, always.
Yeah.
And so some animals I know very well, like I know the hawk very well because it's my power animal. So I have a close relationship with hawk and I know what it represents.
Mm.
But then other birds or I may not be too familiar with. But there's two words I want everybody to stop using because they're actually not accurate. Coincidence and random, because neither of
Yes.
those ever happen,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything is happening for a reason and for us, not to us. And
Right.
so, yeah, I'm the same. If I'm driving in the car and I have a thought, next thing I look up, there's 3 pelicans flying past, or I just go, yep, okay. And the same, sort of look it up, check it out. Or if not, just see that as a confirmation that I'm on the right path, right? Yeah.
Yeah. When I was a little girl, I used to go to New Hampshire every summer to visit my grandmother. And, she lived in the middle of nowhere. And I remember playing badminton with my older sister and my cousin, and we were out there. And all of a sudden, this huge swarm of dragonflies came out of nowhere and completely surrounded us. And I looked at my sister and my cousin to say, what do we do? We just kept playing. But I never forgot that experience because it was so magical.
Mm,
And I've loved dragonflies ever since.
yeah. It's really beautiful when you have those interactions, specifically with animals. I actually had a fish at a fish shop come, and it was huge. This huge fish tank in the middle of this fish shop. Like, I'm assuming that the fish were not for sale. They were really big fish. I mean, this fish would have been, the width of my body, and huge manta ray in there and all sorts of stuff. But this fish came up and just started talking to me right in the corner. So I stopped and we had this interaction, and it told me that it was the wise old fish of the tank. And and it just started going up and down, and I could feel it cleaning my chakras. And
Whoa.
yeah, and so it went to the very top, took some bubbles, and then came and sort of blew it on my third eye. Well, Tim came over unbeknown to me and took a photo because I was so connected to the fish, I didn't realize, but all the other fish in the fish tank had come over to the energy that was happening between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do know that even that, these are signs, right? These are things, if you're open to them, it's like living in a whole different, a different world. And, the Matrix, for example, the movie where
Mm-hmm.
they go into the simulation and there's the woman in the red dress, right? We have so many red dresses in life, that are holding us back and distracting us from stepping into the field and letting go of all of the distractions and living in this lane that's sort of like this super highway that can collapse time and shift so many things for you. That's what we're here for. We're here to really step into that power, that flow of our higher self, and clear the things that are getting in the way from, past lives or whatever, generational history, all the things that we were talking about before, so that we can really vibrate at a higher frequency and ascend and, start evolving as a species as well as a soul.
Yeah. So when you start paying attention to the signs and the messages, it's clearly magical. I mean, by the way, everything's magic. The fact
Mm,
that we are here is magic. The listeners are here as magic. But you realize that you have to participate with the universe in order. It's a two-way thing. So if you're not acting on anything or paying attention to anything, you're going to completely miss it.
Mm.
I think that the sad part about the phones is that everybody's looking at their phone and they're not paying attention to what's happening around them.
It's not only looking at their phone, but now they're influenced by something external to themselves. Now they're in somebody else's energy field and being influenced by that person. And, you know, that's how the marketing works, right? They know exactly how to pull your attention away so that you're not connected to yourself and, you know, able to reflect on what's right for me and what's wrong for me, and, or, you know, doesn't align. The very first time that I had a spiritual, you know, synchronicity like this was so bizarre and so fun that I've just been following these threads ever since. And I'd spiritually woken up, and I was still playing in that realm of trying to work it all out and, you know, using myself as a guinea pig and experimenting. Does this work or does that work? So I was living up in Far North Queensland. I'm from Australia, if you couldn't tell from my accent. And, you know, Queensland is at the very top where there's a little point. And I was coming down to Sydney, which is a new state or a new, you know, area, to get a car. So I got a loan for a car, and I was young, a single mum, and just working all this stuff out. And so I said to my mum, I'm coming down to buy a car. And she said, oh, my partner's friend is leaving to go back overseas. He's selling a car. So, you know, I went into this, oh, look at me, you know, I've been able to manifest so quickly and so easily, you know. Anyway, when we got here, when I got to Sydney, I was going backwards and forwards on a train. And every time, never stopped at this station, but every time we went past Rockdale, for some reason, even if I was reading a book, I'd look up and I'm like, what's the big deal with Rockdale? Go to get this car, and the guy that bought the car, I was going to buy the car off, decided not to go because he met someone at uni and decided he was going to stay. And so we start looking for another car. Anyway, my brother and I decide to have some lunch while we're looking for cars, and we stop at a cafe in Rockdale. Didn't realize that it was Rockdale at the time. I look over, and here's this car for sale. I go over, we get, you know, it was everything I wanted, right color, everything. Do the deal, swap the registration over. The woman lived in Cairns Avenue, and I was living in Cairns up in Far North Queensland. Her last name was the same name as my father-in-law. Sorry, my mum's boyfriend, right? So she had the same surname as his first name. And I showed him the paperwork, and she lived in the same block of flats as the guy I was going to buy the first car from. And she lived in 16 and he lived in 19. So even the 6 and the 9 had swapped over. So it was like one thing after the other. Now that car lasted me for about 7 or 8 years. Nothing wrong with it. You know, was a breeze to use, you know, no mechanical issues. It was just exactly what I needed as a single mum to get me through those, you know, formative years of my kids. And if I hadn't have picked up those little signs, right, I may have gone with being influenced by my brother. Oh, you should get this car because he was a mechanic. This car will be better for you. But because I listened and I saw the signs, I went with the car that was right for me.
So the signs was showing her, this is the car you need to buy.
Yes.
All of the little synchronicities was pointing her in that direction.
Well, it was me. Yeah. It was me that was, yeah.
Sometimes the sign is big. Like, I remember when I lived in Virginia, here we go back to winter because I don't like winter, but we just had a big snowstorm in Virginia years ago. And I walked out to my car and it's covered in snow. I'm feeling really not happy about all of this. I have nothing to scrape my car with, but I need to get in the car and go somewhere. So I'm walking by the car and I just kind of look at it from, at the back of the car, and right on the side of the car was one of those snow scraper things. I don't know what you call them, but like to scrape the snow off your car.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I literally stood there and stared at it. And I was like, what? And
How did that even get there?
I
Yeah.
looked all around me. There was no one there. And then I saw this guy coming, right? And I thought, this is his ice scraper.
Yeah.
I'm just going to like stand here by the car, pretend that I don't see it, and see if he picks it up. He walked right by it. So this was before we became Reiki, everything, but I was already kind of paying attention to these kind of things. And this was, literally what I needed for the car showed up on the ground.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? This is total connection. And really, I just tuning in, I can hear listeners that are going to be listening to this in the future going, well, yeah, but how do you do that, right? And the first thing is just set the intention.
I must have been really focused on it. Like I said, I was in a bad mood. I was like, I don't know how to clean my car off. This is ridiculous. I'm going to walk over there. And then boom, what I needed was on the ground.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? And it's setting the intention that you're supported, that, realizing that you're way more than just this body, that there is no limitation. So being able to tune in and be in unity consciousness, because really this is all fifth dimensional stuff, right? When you're living in fifth dimension, you recognize that you and the ice scraper are the same, right? Like that you needed that. And so the universe provided it before you even recognized that you needed it. Because, I when I first spiritually woke up, I had no idea what I was doing. And I had to do the whole thing by myself. But long story short, I started doing past life regression. I did like 7 years of past life regression training and then became a facilitator and all the things. And through that process, when I first started doing regressions, I had this moment where I, made a bit of a mistake at the start. And, it ended up being that I had to fix it afterwards. This young boy took him through a journey of going through his past lives. And one of them was he was an army guy just about to jump off a cliff. And he came back into his body as the army guy. So, when I got home and, looking after the kids and all the things, his mum rings up and says, oh, could we have stuffed up? That's not my son, blah, 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 and I had to fix it without going near him because he was like, she said, he now thinks you're a witch. There's no way he's going to let you come near him anymore, So I freaked out, put the phone down. I said, look, kid's in the bath. I'm making dinner. Let me just sort all this out and I'll ring you back. So I put the phone down and raced, turned off all the electrics to the food that I was cooking, made sure the kids weren't drowning, raced into my bedroom, called out to Archangel Michael, like, you need me, I need some help here. And so he said, just go in your light body. And, I was able to sort it out. Well, it was the first time I'd been able to do that, like I went in, well, actually it was the second, but it was one of the first times of going into my light body and sorting something out and having a physical evidence that it worked. And so I ring her up maybe an hour later and say, I went to say something and she's like, oh, thank you. This and this has happened and he's back. And she told me the exact time that I had done that process. And so I got off the phone and I went, oh, my God, I am a witch. Like it freaked me out, right? Like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? Like it was a real process. Well, a couple of days later, I went up to the Daintree forest and spent some time to myself. It's a bit of a story, but what I did was I called out to the universe and like, I need a sign that I'm working for the right side, that this is not me doing evil work, like I want to know that this is all okay. And I'd been there for, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And as soon as I asked that question, I got 3 shooting stars and nothing afterwards. Now, you got to remember those 3 shooting stars and that ice shovel was going to be there regardless, whether you were there and I was there at that exact moment or not. Those 3 shooting stars didn't just miraculously happen in that moment. Thousands of years to get to, light years to get to, for me to be in that spot. And so look at the synchronicities of all of that coming together. Like for me to have that experience, to have been working on that young kid at that time, to have that experience, to question it, to wait 2 days for some friends of mine to say, do you want to come camping with us? For them to not be ready to pick me up, so I had to wait on the side of the river. Like all of those things for that exact moment to happen at that exact time. That's what living in 5th dimension and living in the field is all about. And so it's stepping into that part of us that knows that we're more than just this body, setting the intention and saying to the universe, show me what it is I need to know. I want to create the experience of meeting the love of my life. I want to be better health. I want to create millions. I want to be, powerful impactor, influencer, whatever it might be for you. You set the intention to allow the universe to show you and ask the question, show me, so that it's so obvious I can't miss it.
Yeah. And so back to the ice scraper, I could have looked at that and said, oh, I just got lucky, or that just happened. But I knew that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And I was excited that I have been given something I completely needed in that moment.
That actually is a really good point too, because we can make a decision and define something a particular way. So you might have the universe giving you signs left, right, and center. But if you define it as a coincidence and random, and that it's actually just, it's not real, or it just happened, then you're disconnecting from the magic.
Yes.
But when you see something like 1111 or triple numbers, and you go, yes, that is the connection happening for me, not to me, and you say yes to the universe, the more those things will start happening for you, and you define them as magic, and that's when your whole world will open up.
Yeah, and you can even say, hey, I know what that numbers means, and you don't need to send it to me anymore. They will never stop.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, I know.
Got it.
It keeps coming. But sometimes also there are things that you think that happen that may get in your way, like may make you late for something, or may seem like it's more of a hassle, but in the end, it ended up protecting you. So I have an example. One time we were in a nearby city and we had dinner, and my husband was driving and he missed the exit to the highway. And so he went to the next light and the light wouldn't turn. Like we sat there for a cycle or two and it wouldn't turn. So then he tried the next opportunity to make a U-turn, finally did a U-turn, went on the highway, And as we're driving up there, we encounter an accident.
Mm.
And I knew that my family was being protected from that. Because if that light had turned green right away, we might have been in that.
Yeah.
And so you don't ever really know. Don't get discouraged because you don't have all of the information of what's happening around you.
Yes, absolutely. We are the universe. We are the creator. We are connected to all of that, and we're limited. It's the dichotomy of
I
life, right?
know. It's so
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
We are, but then we're not. I think the limitation is also an illusion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're
How
taught that we're limited, but we are not limited.
95% of the time we're living in that limitation, that part of us, our unconscious, that's been programmed to see ourselves as broken in some way, not good enough, imperfect, all the things. And so because it's been, wired into the brain, the neural pathways wire that way from childhood, 0 to 7, but definitely 0 to 3, those real formative years, that we start assessing and we haven't got a rational mind. We can't assess it and go, well, that's actually not true. We just absorb all that information. So now that's what's running the show. And so that limitation is what we're working with to remember that that's the illusion.
Right.
The
It's
part
all
that we,
about expectation. So if you expect it to be random and a coincidence, it's not going to contain any magic for you.
yeah, absolutely.
If you realize there's no such thing and it's only synchronicity, then it starts becoming exciting. And then you're in a totally better vibration and frequency because you're excited and you're like, oh my God, that is so cool that the ice scraper showed up.
Yeah.
And then more happens. More of that happens for you.
Yeah.
So that's the
Absolutely.
secret sauce.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's funny because that part of my brain that, wants to know all the details, and someone that lives in Australia and hasn't really been around snow, my first thought is, how do you scrape ice off without scratching the car, right?
Well,
Is it rubber?
all right. So on one end is kind of like a hard surface, like a comb that you would use on the glass. And then on the other side is like a brush, like a broom brush that you would use. But you do kind of scrape your car a little bit if you're not careful. But the brush will get the snow off. But you at least want to clean your windows. That's the priority so you can see where you're going. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it. And there were things that were happening to me at that time. Like usually when I was down in the dumps, that something would happen to cheer me up, lickety split.
Yeah.
Like in the same apartment complex, I remember I didn't really enjoy my job. And I came home from work and I'm like walking up the stairs to my apartment, my head's down. And I look up and my neighbor's standing on the landing with a little teeny tiny kitten.
Yeah, wow.
And I just, who doesn't melt around a kitten? And I was like, oh my God, completely forgot about whatever I was down about. And so I knew those things were being put in my way to help me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is the beauty and magic of life, isn't it? When you can tap in and really, I mean, we could talk all day of the synchronicities.
We could do
yeah.
7 days and probably still wouldn't get through all the stories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it'd be really interesting. I'm assuming your listeners have had potentially these synchronicities too, and now might even be going, I wonder if that was a message from my higher self, from spirit, and the fact that you're questioning it, I would say, the very fact that this is, as you were saying before, this is not a coincidence that you're listening to this particular podcast at this time.
Yeah. And,
Your higher self has given you this information and opportunity to be here present, listening in the car or whatever's going on for you right now,
So if, say, you're skeptical, that's fine, but experiment with it and try it. And all you need is an open mind for things to change. Just be open-minded and see, and ask for signs. If you are doubting the small sign, ask for a bigger one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're not putting anybody out by asking for a bigger sign. This is what universe likes to do.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, because when you ask a question or, have a conversation, build a relationship with your higher self and ask for things specifically to be shown to you, it's so much fun. Asking for things. I was given the opportunity to go to Alaska, and I didn't know if it was the right thing because I'd already been. And so it was like, well, I go again. It was like a couple of years later. And I'm in Australia, no ice, no cold, it was summer. And I put that thought out. I'm like, okay, if I'm supposed to go and this is okay for me to go, I want a sign that it's okay to go. And the first time I'd gone to Alaska, I had gone to a crystal shop in Ketchikan, I think it's called. And it was it was in the middle of this little alley, but it was a crystal shop, but it was called the Rock Shop. And I had an experience where this butterfly came in and circled me, and the woman in there was like, oh, that's never happened before, while we were talking, all the things, right? So, a couple of years later, here I am in the middle of the city, in Sydney, and I put this, I want to go, I want a sign. And my friend said, what sort of sign do you want? And I went, I don't know, maybe I'll drive down the road and there's a big billboard with "Go to Alaska," something crazy like that. So we have lunch. I finish lunch, get into my car. I get literally only a couple of meters down the road, and the light turns red, and I'm sitting the first person in the car at this set of red lights. And I look over, and there's this new shop starting on this road, and it was called the Crystal and Rock Shop. And I just knew, right? That was the sign, right? Because, the shop, no one that I know of here in Australia calls crystals rocks, right? So it was just one of those moments, and, you just laugh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to Alaska. It looks like I'm going to Alaska, right? And I took my son instead of my daughter. So, yeah, it's these are the things. You get confirmation, and then you get to know that you're in alignment with your higher self, with your soul's purpose. You're not straying off the course. You're actually doing exactly what your soul wanted to experience and wanted to, enjoy down here.
Yeah, and life is supposed to be fun. It's magical, and the creator's very funny. It has a wicked sense of humor, and the proof is everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're coming upon just a few more minutes, Elizabeth. So I wanted you to share how people can contact you if they'd like to work with you, and any kind of projects you're working on right now.
So I'm assuming I'll have all of my little bits and pieces.
Yes, all that information will be in the show notes. But
yeah,
I'm the kind of person, when I'm listening to an episode, I'll be like, I'll go right to Amazon or whatever and get the book.
Yeah. So my website is ElizabethElenor.com, and Eleanor's a little bit unusual. I don't know if I've ever met anyone with the same spelling. So Elenor is Elenor. So it's ElizabethElenor.com. We have free monthly mixes. I call them a monthly mixer. I've got a Facebook group called Awakening Magical Women Choosing Conscious Relationships. But if anyone's interested, I'll give you the link. I did a monthly mixer last year called Follow the White Rabbit. And it's all about this stuff we're talking about, is, synchronicities. And we do a beautiful meditation where Alice goes down the rabbit hole, and you get to experience what your soul wants you to understand. So a little message from your soul. So I will give you the link for that if anyone wants to check that out. I now have it like a free video for you to check out. But yeah, if anyone wants to talk, I've got a link to have a booking, just to have a 20-minute chat, and we can see where you're at and where you want to go and what might be getting in the way.
And so are the mixers in person or online?
Online.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do one once a month. We just did Rewriting Your Wonderland. We're going to do one about listening to your inner voice. So I don't know where we'll be when this publishes, but check out the Facebook group. And my business page is called Peacemaker Ascension Portal. So you can check it out on there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elenor, for sharing your magical synchronistic stories. And I encourage everyone to start looking at the synchronicities in your life as magic and not just as random coincidences. And your approach to life will completely change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right now it's really important because we've got the opportunity to really step into those higher frequencies very fast. So you're not listening to this by coincidence. Yes, this is not random. Thank you so much, Tina. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's so much fun talking to you. So